It's always great to be joined by the Tony Soprano of New England, the man behind Top Game Management and coach to Calvin Kattar, Rob Fine, and so many other fighters. It's Tyson Chartier back here on the program. Tyson, how are you?
Not bad, James. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a really busy guy. Arnold Allen, that is the opponent for Calvin Kattar. I know this was a fight that was kind of talked about, I think last year. There were some rumblings about it. Just take me back to sort of the history of this fight, and obviously now it's official.
Yeah, so I think after the Max fight, they had offered us in August. We fought Max in January, and then in August they offered us Arnold Allen for a main event in October. We said yes right away, and then it took like 3 weeks to get an answer. I think he was dealing with some injuries, so it was a little frustrating on our end. And then at the end of that, when that didn't happen, that's when they said, "Hey, we're shifting gears. We'll do Giga in January." And we are like, "All right, more time isn't going to hurt." So, yeah, I mean that's kind of how it happened. And then, he had called us out, I think, after he won in February or March or whatever that was. And we said yes right away. And then it was like, well, I need more time. So I honestly didn't really think the fight was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, fast forward a few months, then that's the fight the UFC wanted to make. So I think maybe they kind of made it happen.
Okay.
They have their ways. So, yeah, another main event. This will be third main event this year for Calvin, fifth main event in a row. And Allen's first main event. So we'll see, that's how you get tested. You gotta jump in with the big guys and see how you do. So, we're excited about the fight. It's the highest ranked guy available that we could fight, but it seems like Calvin's getting thrust into this role of beating winning streaks. I think
Mm-hmm.
Ige had 6, Giga had 7. Now Arnold's on a 9-fight win streak. So try to take that one away.
Were there any other opponents in the mix, or was it always Allen was going to be the opponent?
There was no other names were mentioned to us. So it was Allen, and then it was like a 3 weeks of back and forth of like, is this day going to happen? Is it not? And they're waiting for some things to shake out, and yeah, and then it was Allen, and that's I think it's the fight the UFC wanted. It's the fight Allen wanted, and we just want to fight the highest ranked guy available. So technically, that would make it the fight that we wanted.
Was this the opponent you wanted? I know Zombie's another name out there. Was this the one you wanted to get done?
I think based on timeline, I mean, Zombie would be a good name to fight, especially, if we went to Korea and fought him. I think that's the rumors that he's going to fight in Korea next year. But I think the timeline didn't, necessarily add up. Like us, even though I think that last fight probably could have gone our way and should have gone our way, we are coming off a loss technically. So sitting around is not going to help our cause at all. All we can do is just control what we can control, which is get back in there as soon as possible if we're healthy and beat Arnold Allen and see where their cards fall after that.
Yeah, no, very well said. So looking at this fight from a style perspective, Coach, how are you looking at this one? Because obviously Allen, he's really improved his stand-up. We saw that in the fight with Dan Hooker.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. He's he's in a lot of aggressive fights. A lot of his fights do go to the ground, and he even said in the Hooker post-fight interview that their plan was to wrestle. So if you look at a lot of his fights, he does wrestle. He does get taken down. I think he's an aggressive striker that's fighting smarter now with Faraz. He's coming in with more of a plan sometimes and, executing on that. He's shown that he's evolved over those 9 fights in the UFC. He's, seems like he's got better footwork. He's making better decisions. His grappling is improving. So I think if you look at it on paper, everybody's thinking like, oh, boxer versus boxer, this is going to be great. But all of his fights seem to go to the ground. So I wouldn't be surprised if, there's some wrestling mixed in, if he's trying to take us down. And I think it makes for an exciting fight. It's the kind of the prospect versus like the top 5. I don't. Calvin's not a gatekeeper because he's still, we're still chasing a title. That so that's by definition we're not a gatekeeper. But if you want to get into the top 5, you have to beat someone like Calvin. So, we're kind of this destructor of win streaks for the UFC in the featherweight division right now, and that's what's next. We just have to go out there and beat him, and the styles make it for a fun fight. It's a fun fight for the UFC. It's a fun fight for the fans. It's a fun fight for us. I think it's a fun fight for Allen. That's why he's asking for it. And yeah, should be. Hopefully, it's not a good fight because that means it was competitive.
Right. No, for sure. And just from a coaching's perspective, how exciting is it to go against another coach like Faraz Sahabi? I don't believe you fought any of his guys before.
Never in the UFC. No. It's good. You're always trying to think like, all right, what's Faraz going to come out with? What's their game plan going to be for this one? What do I think they're going to do? How are they going to react to this? And you have that in the back of your mind. But at the end of the day, Arnold's fighting Calvin, not me, and Calvin's fighting Arnold, not Faraz. So,
Yeah.
it's me and Faraz's job to get these guys as best they can be to, perform on the 29th. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun going against the top coaches and, trying to, steal a win from them, so to speak, and, challenge yourself as a coach too.
How much will Calvin's experience play into this? Just in the fact that he's fought, some of the best guys in the weight class. That's maybe the one knock on Arnold, maybe not his fault, because I know he hasn't been as active as Calvin has, but how much will that play into it, considering that Calvin's fought the Holloways and the Emmets and guys like that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it plays into effect, Arnold, he's fought some big names, Gilbert Melendez and Hooker was, he's a pretty big name.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fought, guys with names, just not guys with names that are at like the peak of their career. So I think this is a good step up for him. And hopefully just, Allen's never been in a 5-round fight. Hopefully, it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that. Cause, he's shown some cardio issues in 3-round fights that he was winning, which is always a red flag to me, saying that like, all right, can you go 5 hard rounds if you're not winning?
Mm-hmm.
And Calvin's shown that he can do that. I think Allen probably can, but
Mm-hmm.
there's that little doubt in the back of his mind thinking like, can I go 5 hard rounds even when I'm not dictating the pace? And he's going to have to try to answer that question on the 29th. And I think that'll show a lot of the fans, like, is this guy a title contender? Because, even if you're the best 3-round fighter in the world, that doesn't win you a title. You have to be good at 5 rounds too. And it is a different beast, maybe not the camp's not so much different, but in the fight, like from a pacing standpoint, like, are you going to, you can't look like you did in the 3rd round of some of your fights in a 5-round fight against someone like Calvin and think you're going to win those 4th and 5th rounds. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he comes out and what his strategy is in terms of pacing and stuff like that.
Anything different for this camp? Any cross training, or are you just going to keep everything at home base this camp?
Yeah, so we had for the Emmett camp, we had 7 weeks. We were in Vegas, and then we had 7 weeks. We came back from Vegas and we did a 7-week camp. This fight, 7 weeks again, and we just wanted to change it up a little bit. And fighting Allen, where he's a southpaw, it's a different look. And so what we did is we started off with the first 2 weeks of camp, and we were already training for 3 weeks because we thought the fight was going to happen. But then when we officially got the bout agreement, it was like, all right, this is happening. A few days later, we flew out to Vegas. We trained at the PI for 2 weeks. We brought Eddie George with us. He's 5-0 at 155. He's a 5'9" southpaw, real aggressive. So we had him out there with us for the week. We brought our jiu-jitsu coach, Nick, who's also a 5'0", 155er. He's got great jiu-jitsu. But then we brought in Dan Ige for some of the grappling, and then Atan Levy, who's a southpaw and real good kicks. And so between that whole group, and then we had Richie Van Houten from Jersey come out. He's a coach out in Jersey. We had him come and bring one of his black belts. This guy Munchie. I kept calling him Dutch, but his name's Munch. He's a 3-0 145er and world class jiu-jitsu. So we had those guys out with us for 2 weeks in Vegas, and getting the different looks, just getting to leverage the PI for 2 weeks, and really kick off camp. So now we're back here for 3 weeks, and then we'll be flying out to Vegas on the 20th. So we're flying out to Vegas 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah. Obviously, fights coming up here pretty quickly. There's something in the water in New England. I see Rob's going to be a dad. Rob Font, that is, and I saw Ross Levine as well is going to be a dad. So are they in the gym? I know Calvin brought in Rob just for Chikaze. Is he going to be working with Calvin this camp as well?
Are you saying Ross?
Ross. Sorry, Ross Levine. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not cross training with Ross for this one. I mean, I manage Ross, so we're always in contact. And but for this camp, we won't be. We're not going to use someone like it's just such a different look.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, congrats to him and Maddie. He's having the baby. Hopefully, he can get a fight in December with Karate Combat and either win a second belt or defend the belt he already has. So that'd be a plan for him. And then Rob, yeah, he's having a baby. Him and Kathy, they'll actually be coming out to fight week with us too. So they're flying out. They'll be there. Rob will be cornering for the fight. So we'll have a very pregnant Catherine in the house with us, helping Calvin's mom prepare meals for Calvin on fight week, and it's exciting. It's cool. When I put my coaching hat on, it's cool to see these guys grow up, and kind of go through the same stuff that I went through like years ago. My oldest son is 6; he'll be 7 in December, and now they're gonna have a baby in December, and he's kind of seen me go through learning how to be a dad, and I'm trying to give him the dad tips on my end. But seeing him and Kathy like get excited for the baby coming, it's pretty rewarding to see like how far he's come, and that they're now they're preparing their whole life for another life. And I'm proud of them. I'm happy for them, and all we can hope for at this point is just a healthy, happy baby.
Speaking of Rob, there was that rumor going around about him and Adrian Yanez. What was the deal there, or that was just something on social media?
The only thing I can think is that when the UFC had called back in, I don't know, a couple months ago, and they said, "Hey, what's the deal with Rob?" And they never mentioned a point. They just said, "Hey, is Rob available? Like, what's his timeline?" I was like, "Oh, like I already told you. Like, I think there's a misunderstanding. Like, I told him, like, listen, Rob's not fighting until next year. You
Yeah.
know, February or March probably. We're just gonna take a time to get the baby coming in December. You know, we're gonna work on a lot of things back in the gym and just let him heal and then get back into fight shape. And I think there's just too much on his plate to try to come back early from the 2 fights that he had. But with the baby coming too, it's just too much at once. So we told Rob back after the last fight, we're like, listen, you're not going to fight till next year. Let's get back in the gym and fill some holes and, you know, do PT, stuff like that, get 100% healthy, and then come back with, like, you know, a rejuvenated Rob Font after you have your baby. He was cool with that. But when the UFC called, I think they somehow forgot that or whatever. And they were like, hey, is Rob, what's his timeline? And I'm like, oh, he's not fighting until next year. And they're like, well, okay, so he couldn't fight at MSG. And I was like, no, definitely. And they're like, all right, let's talk about Calvin. That was the only conversation we had with UFC regarding Rob. Mm-hmm. And then I saw the rumors about Adrian Yanez. So probably what happened is they asked Adrian, do you want to fight Rob? And he's like, oh, of course, that'd be awesome. And then they never asked us. So because once they heard that we weren't even going to fight, the fight was never offered to us or anything like that. I'm totally speculating here too.
Yeah.
And so the thing I don't understand is why did he think he was fighting us for a month? If, like, because the timelines matched up when he said I might have a fight soon. It was like right after we got that call, because I went back and looked. I'm like, why would he think he's fighting us? And then the day that I told, and then what was it? Then he finally came out and said he wasn't, and that was the day I told the media, no, we're not fighting, we're not even available. And then he posted that. So I just don't understand, like, if he says he's sitting around for a month waiting on a bout agreement, how did he not know that we already said no?
Yeah.
So I got to think either there's some sort of miscommunication on the other end too, where, you know, I don't know. It doesn't matter who didn't tell him, but someone dropped the ball and didn't communicate with him that, listen, this fight was never even happening. So
yeah, that's how I felt, because I saw, obviously, you can see on social media, on Instagram, Rob's talking about being a dad. I'm like, of course he's not going to fight right now because he's got this coming up. So I knew when I saw that, I'm like, I don't think that's happening. So that's, I just wanted to kind of get some clarity there. Back to Calvin, obviously, I know, you know, you give him everything you can and he's got to go in there and actually perform. But how do you see the fight playing out with him and Arnold Allen coming up here in a few weeks?
Man, I mean, in a perfect world, Calvin comes out, gets in his face, and breaks him. You know, this kid hasn't been tested. Like, I think the idea that there's 5 rounds of Calvin in front of you is a daunting task. You know, even the best in the world that have been able to do it, even if they win, like, it's not an easy fight. You know, Calvin's got that 5-round experience against tougher opponents than he's ever fought. So, you know, we just got to come out and just establish that it's our cage and big brother him. You know. He's coming into his first main event. It's our 6th main event, 5th in a row. We just got to get in his face and show him that, listen, like, you might land some shots, but we're here for 25 minutes. Can you last that long? And then Calvin's really good about, like, once he's dictating the pace, getting creative and seeing those openings, and that's where he gets real loose and gets going and the fun stuff happens. That's when you start seeing the spinning elbows and seeing, like, you know, just, you know, he just gets more creative when he's loose and he's dictating. So I assume they're going to come out and try to bully us and try to take the cage from us, force us backwards, probably try to wrestle, try to, you know, use that outside calf kick that he likes to do against guys that don't check kicks. And I think it's going to be an important first round. You know, we got to come out and just fight our fight. You know, Calvin always says, like, we can't worry too much about what the other people are doing. It's really like Calvin's got to come out and perform that night. And I the things I'm seeing in the gym are very encouraging. You know, I think his mind's in a good place. His body's physically in a good place. And, you know, Calvin Kattar coming off a loss, he's pissed off. You know, he's mad at Chris Lee. We all are. But he's also mad at himself. He wish he would have done more in those earlier rounds. So I'm excited to see him get out there and perform.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. And sort of the idea, again, not getting ahead of ourselves here, but, you know, you beat Allen, I would think another contender after that, and then maybe, you know, looking at a title. Because, again, the fight with Emmett, it's kind of a weird one because I think people felt like Calvin did enough to win, but it was a very close fight. Like, is that kind of your expectation that he would need maybe 2 more wins, including this fight, to get in that title shot?
It's hard to speculate, man. Like, like, are they going to do an interim shot? Are they going to not? So
Yeah.
realistically, like, if they do an interim title, we're one injury away from being the guy that fights for the title. So it's like,
Yeah.
we can't control any of that. The only thing we can control is performing on October 29th and ending a 9-fight win streak, which would be like a really impressive thing to do. And then showing the world that, like, listen, we are that guy. And I think there's a lot of people that still think that after the Emmett fight. Yeah, it's frustrating. We're a bitter taste, but we're going to take that frustration hopefully out on Arnold Allen on the 29th.
Before we get out of here, obviously you coach, you manage as well. Anything on the horizon, whether it's any prospects we should keep an eye on, or any of the guys that you manage that have any upcoming fights that we should know about? I want to get the Top Game management / Tyson Chartier coaching update before we get out of here.
Yeah, we're just still building a lot of the young guys. Nick Fiore, 5-0 at 155 with 5 finishes. Eddie George, 5-0 at 155 with 4 finishes. Tom Pags just got back in the win column, 4-1 at 45. You got Mitch getting back in there. He just had a weight cut issue, but he's getting back in there in November. We'll make it 2 in a row since the Ultimate Fighter, or since the Contender Series. And then another young 25er is Harris Bonfiglio. He's 5-1 with 5 finishes. And then Angel Pacheco at 45. He's 7-1 with 7 finishes. I think like 6 are in the first round, and he's beaten some good guys lately. So yeah, I think we got a lot of like people like right on the cusp of like either being on Contender next year or getting called in with an injury replacement, and it's exciting. I think we got a good group of young guys underneath us that are going to come up and make New England and Top Game proud.
And you always make time for me, Tyson. I really appreciate it, man. I know you got a million things. You got kids, you got the coaching, managing, all that stuff. So I really appreciate it. If there's anything you want to plug before we get out of here, I'll give you the last word as I usually do.
All right, just appreciate everybody that keeps supporting the cartel and the Top Game guys, and that's really it. Just tune in on the 29th, and hopefully Calvin earns the next crack at the title shot with an impressive win.